Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the sedra of mishpatim. And it is the last of the Shovavim sedras, the last of the unique, among the unique sedras that we read of Shemos, Va'era, Bo, Beshalach, Yisro, Mishpatim. And we mentioned at the beginning of this group of sedras that this is an especially auspicious time, that the subject matter really goes to the core of our nation, about Yetzias Mitzrayim, the exodus from Egypt that we read about the earlier of this group of sedras, Shemos, Va'era, Bo, and Beshalach, and in Yisro Mishpatim, we have the Aseres Hadibros, the 10 utterances, and the revelation at Sinai. And the sedra of Mishpatim is sometimes thought about in a different way, in terms of not being as dramatic, and we read these incredibly long lists. We've got a total of 53 mitzvot in the sedra of Mishpatim. We have 23 mitzvot aseh, 23 commandments telling us to perform an act, and 30 mitzvot lo ta'aseh, 30 prohibitions, 30 things that we must refrain from doing. And so this is an exceptionally long list, and it could sound in parts like a legal textbook and doesn't seem to be quite as dramatic and exciting as what has been recorded in the sedras until Mishpatim. And I think that we can get clues as to the depth and the eternal relevance of the words in the sedra of Mishpatim by looking at one particular letter, a grammatical clue, as it were, and then also looking at the structure in terms of how the sedra of Mishpatim is wrapped, if you like, wrapped in revelation. We'll see the passages before and after Mishpatim are all part of what happened at Har Sinai, and we are then encouraged to look at the sedra of Mishpatim not as a standalone list of 53 mitzvot, but an integral part of what was said, and what was said, part of the drama of Mount Sinai. So the first thing that we can look at is this letter Vav, and there is a famous Rashi at the very beginning of the sedra of Mishpatim, and when Rashi picks up on the word Va'ela, the first letter of the first word, and the Rashi goes as follows: Va'ela hamishpatim asher tosim lifneihem. And these are the laws. We'll translate the word mishpatim as laws, that you should place before them. Kol makom shenema eila, whenever it says these in the Torah, posal es harishonim, it cancels out what has been said previously. It starts a completely new topic. Va'ela, whenever it has the vav, the conjunctive, the vav that adds, and mosif al harishonim. Whenever it says and these, as it does here, it adds to what has been stated previously. Thus, ma harishonim misinai, just as those which have been stated previously, i.e. the Aseres Hadibros, are from Sinai, af elu misinai, so too these commandments that we're going to read about in the sedra of Mishpatim are also from Sinai. So we've got this concept of this single letter called Vav, which actually means a hook in Hebrew as well, which is the ultimate joining tool or piece in your toolbox. And this is the message is that the two sedras of Yisro and Mishpatim are connected by this hook, by this letter Vav. And that is certainly a grammatical way of making this point of connection and underscoring what I said earlier. We cannot just read the laws in Mishpatim in isolation. They are an integral part of the Aseres Hadibros. And to to back this up, really, we've got the passages that we read about towards the end of the sedra of Yisro, and actually no, more in the middle, really, of the sedra of Yisro. So that's going to be chapter 19, verse 17. And that is giving the position of the people, that Vayotze Moshe es ha'am likros ha'Elohim, and Moshe brought out the people from the camp, likros ha'Elohim min ha'machaneh, brought out the people to meet God from the camp, Vayitzvu b'tachtis hahar, and they stood underneath, or at the bottom. Yeah, I say tachtis. This is actually the source of the medrash, that the Jewish people were under the mountain, and they were actually coerced into accepting the Torah. But on the simple explanation, tachtis hahar is the lower part of the mountain. The people were not allowed to climb up the mountain. They had to stay behind, and Moshe Rabbeinu alone, although Aaron, Nadav and Abihu and the elders and Yehoshua carry a slightly further, carry on with Moshe Rabbeinu a slightly greater distance, they must then stop at that point, and Moshe Rabbeinu continues alone to the top of the mountain. And so we have this vision of the people standing during this point of revelation at the bottom of the mountain. And then we have, at the end of the sedra of mishpatim, this is, or towards the end of the sedra of mishpatim, this is when the people say the iconic Na'aseh v'nishma, and that is chapter 24, verse 7, Vayikach Sefer Habris, and he took the book of the covenant. This is referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. Vayikra ba'oznei ha'am, and he read it aloud in the ears of the people. Vayomru, and they said, Kol asher diber Hashem, everything that Hashem has spoken, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do, and we will process, we will listen, and this has become the emblem of the acceptance of the Torah by the people at the end. And this is bookending the sedra of mishpatim with these two tableaus of the people. Firstly, before the revelation, standing there at the foot of the mountain, and then at the end of the whole ceremony, the ceremony of Aseres Hadibros, and then the ceremony listening to all of the mitzvahs in mishpatim, the covenant, the brit of the dam, of the blood that was carried out just before the people say Na'aseh v'nishma. And so the whole sedra of mishpatim is part of that complete picture, and this is really giving the sedra of mishpatim its rightful place as being an integral part of the revelation at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai. And in a very interesting talk on this week's sedra, the Israeli journalist Sivan Rahav Meir points out that if we look at all of these 53 mitzvot, then it looks like a holy hodgepodge. The mitzvot seem to be quite varied, and at the outset you might not even discern a certain pattern. But what she identifies is 5 different categories where these mitzvot are showing us how to give kavod, how to give honor and respect towards the society as a whole. And really, if we look at these mitzvot, we'll see that many of the sections of society that are especially underscored as being an important part of who we have to show kavod to are people who are at the margins of society, people, not the nobility, not the people who are very wealthy, but there's this complete picture of everyone in society. And the first mitzvah in mishpatim, the first sort of obligation to show kavod, is to the Eved Ivri. And this is somebody who is either having to has stolen and he cannot afford to pay back what he has stolen, so therefore he sells himself into slavery, or somebody who is so poor that he cannot afford to take care of himself, so he has to sell himself into slavery. And the respect and honor that one must treat a person in this situation, this is the starting point. And this is the first category that we must show honor to. The next category that we show honor to is to somebody who has stolen. And again, this is not the normal person that you would think, gosh, we have to show respect to. But the picture that's being built up here is that the mitzvot in mishpatim are really making us realize in a very practical way that we need to try to just show that dignity and respect to all sections of the community. So we find it's a very special way that we learn this regarding the person who has stolen, and that is in chapter 21 verse 37, and just go and read that out. So, ki yignov ish shor oseh. If somebody steals an ox or a lamb, or tavocha or mochro, or slaughters it or sells it, chamisha vakar, he must repay 5 oxen for the ox, yeshalem tachas hashar, that he is going to have to pay for the ox, va'arba zon tachas haseh, and he has to repay 4 sheep for the lamb. And if we just have a look, why does the thief have to pay the value 5 times for the ox and only 4 for the lamb? So Rashi comments that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, God has great concern for people's dignity. For stealing a bull which walks on its own feet, and therefore the thief merely had to pull it along and was not embarrassed by carrying it on his shoulder, he pays 5-fold. For stealing a lamb which the thief carried on his shoulder, he pays only 4-fold because he was embarrassed by having to carry it. So Hashem, by requiring the person who has stolen an ox to pay 5 times the value, because he hasn't had the embarrassment of schlepping it on his shoulders that he would have with a lamb that is lighter and smaller, and he would not physically be able to carry the ox on his shoulders. So Hashem is showing, even in a situation where somebody has committed an offense and needs to be punished, but still he is treated with that kavod, he is treated with respect. And the next category of respect to sections of society who, unfortunately, because of vulnerability in one way or another, might not receive that respect, is respect to the ger, the almana, and the yatom. So that is the convert, a widow, and to an orphan. And in all of these situations, the ger who has left his community, who has joined the community of Israel, and he doesn't necessarily have the kind of support of family, of long established connections and relations within the community, and a widow who doesn't have her husband, who would perhaps be able to, whether it's bring in the weekly wage or just be a presence in her life in case other people are wanting to take advantage. There is that bulwark. And a yosom, somebody who has a child who has lost their parent, and not yet an adult, and therefore that much more vulnerable. And Hashem is stating very emphatically that we must show every single one of these in every person in these categories are to be accorded the protection and the honor that is their due. And then there's almost an escalation, because the next surprising category of people that we need to show this kavod, this honor and respect to, is to an oyev or a soneh. That is an enemy or someone who we hate. And this is a sad truth, and that we find in chapter 23, verses 4 and 5. And we'll just read that out. Ki sifga shor oyevacha. If you come across your enemy's ox or his stray donkey, to'eh hoshev teshivenu lo, you must return it to him. You must surely return it to him. So we've got this double expression of emphasis. Obviously, somebody might not be that kindly disposed to a person who is described as an enemy, and therefore needs that extra encouragement of the double expression, you shall surely give it back to him. No room for arguing it. And then Pasuk 5, Ki sireh chamor sonacha, if you will see your enemy's donkey, rovetz tachas masa'o, lying under its load, v'chadalta ma'azov lo, and you might want to refrain from helping him, azov ta'azov imo, you shall surely help him unload this donkey. And so again, we are being instructed to show kavod to a person who we think of as our enemy. And there's an escalation, because if you think of a person as your enemy, you're then one step closer to hating him. And there's an escalation of these terribly toxic feelings, attitudes towards somebody. And the Torah is saying, in a very practical way, you're not saying love these people. If you're in your heart thinking of someone as your enemy, for the Torah to say you shall love this person might just be an ask too far. But by saying you just have to be a mensch, be a decent person. You see that the animal is lost, you've got to return it to him. You see that the animal is struggling under its burden, you've got to help him. So bite your tongue and just do the act, with or without a smile, with or without a gracious hello, but just do the act. And then, in a way of perhaps reaching the highest point, to the honor that is due to oneself. And this is, we can find in the category of the mitzvahs that are in chapter 23, verse 7. And that we find Lo sater mishpat evyon chabarivo. You do not pervert judgment of your poor man in his lawsuit. Midvar sheker tirchok. Distance yourself from anything false. V'noki v'tzadik al taharog. And do not kill a convicted person if fresh evidence arises before his execution suggesting that he's innocent. Ki lo atzdik rosha. For I will not let a guilty person escape punishment. V'shochad lo tikach. Do not accept a bribe. Ki hashochad ya'aver pikrim. Because a bribe blinds the eyes of those who can see it. V'yisalef divrei tzadikim. And corrupt righteous words. So with these mitzvot, with this understanding, a very famous and often mistranslated phrase of midvar sheker tirchak, which has been translated as never tell a lie. It's much more nuanced than that. It's being realistic that we are being told, distance yourself from something, from devar can either be a word or a thing, for something that is false. And very often when you are, and this is such psychological insight and advice, that if you are in something close up, you are in the forest, you cannot see a whole picture. You need to distance yourself, and then you're better able to see what is true, what is false, and come up with the right way of behaving. And that is really giving yourself that respect to do the right thing, because when you do the right thing, then you are the one who is benefiting. You are the one who is going to be enriched by all of these activities. And I think that there's this pointing out of the categories that receive kavod, that receive this honor and respect, especially in cases where naturally you might not give honor and respect to people in those categories, is something that is encouraging us to overcome our instincts, to overcome our failure to recognize that every single person is deserving of this honor. I would like to develop this point of the honor that is due in these cases. I think that it's something that we can link to the vav that we mentioned at the beginning, this vav that joins, the vav hachibur, that joins the contents of the sedra of mishpatim to the sedra of Yisro, that joins the laws that we're reading about to the Aseret HaDibros. I would like to say that this vav of connection is something that can help us to show that kavod, which we will have to struggle perhaps against our instincts, to show people in all of these categories on occasions that particular honor. And the way we can really give them the honor naturally and sincerely is by understanding that we are connected to them and feeling that connection, feeling that reality that we are all, this is all part of Hashem's oneness. This is all, every section of society, certain people going through struggles. There, but for the grace of God, go all of us. And we, with that humility, are able to connect. When we are able to connect, then it's much easier for us to show them the kavod that will certainly naturally come from these mitzvot of the Torah, which definitely push us against that tide of our natural instincts. And it occurred to me that I've often, when I've spoken in various places, people have said to me words like, they're a good person and they don't necessarily need religion, they don't need to listen to the words of the Torah in order to be a good person. They can be a good person without them. And I take exception to that. I believe that the Sedra of Mishpatim stands as one of the very many arrows in our quiver to show that human beings need help to overcome their natural tendencies. But I actually have a proof text for this point from the Daily Telegraph of last week. It was the 6th of February, that just passed, 6/2/23, and it was talking about a TV drama that is called Gold, that is being shown on that beacon of light, the BBC, and it is about the Brinksmat robbery, and the Kenneth Noy, the notorious criminal convicted of an M25 road rage murder, will be given a sympathetic hearing in a new BBC drama. So, you know, how we can give a murderer a sympathetic hearing, that's, I think, definitely going beyond the requirement to show respect and honor to a human being. But the creator of this particular drama will say things like, it views crime as a study in social mobility, with Noy and others feeling a sense of injustice that the rich stay rich while the working class struggle. That's how England is, Noy tells his wife in the drama. That lot have it, us lot nick it. So what we're having here is that there is this justifying theft. It's a way of saying it's not a problem. They have it, we nick it. That's our job description. There's nothing wrong with it. The Torah is very clear that there is a lot wrong with theft. However, we still treat the thief with respect, but there is no way that we are going to justify things that are wrong. And I think that this is the danger of the attitudes that we find in surrounding us, that there isn't an admission that something is wrong. There'll be this whitewash, and it is absolutely shocking and damaging on a very serious level. Even though it is just a TV drama, this is something that people are watching. These are attitudes that can rub off. And I think that the creator of this drama is saying, quote, criminality is a tool which they're trying to use to achieve something. And again, this whitewash to the point of destroying the fabric of society. It is nothing short of that. And so to those people who say that we don't, that they can be very good without learning the Torah, listening to the Torah, I think that what I've just read out in this excerpt, where things that are blatantly wrong are somehow being twisted and spun in such a way that this conduct is justified. And this Kenneth Noy, who was the robber in the Brinksmat robbery, he was a murderer as well. And there is this idea of anything I want to do, anything I want to have, I can do that, I can have that, I can take it. And against that horrifically destructive way of thinking that is so prevalent today in some cases and in some sections of society is a godless society, we have the rules and the structure of mishpatim that link everything, all of the minutiae of the detail in mishpatim. All of these 53 mitzvot are connected to the Aseret HaDibrot, and there is a clear description of what is wrong and what is right, and how we have to treat people with respect, but still we have to acknowledge when people do things that are wrong, there are penalties and there are consequences. And I think that this is definitely one of the essential proof texts that anybody who thinks that we we can come to this, even though the point of mishpatim is that many of these laws, other countries, other societies will have very similar laws. Societies that do not subscribe to the Torah are not obligated by the laws of the Torah, and they will come to a lot of these laws as well. However, it is the unique way that these laws are phrased, the unique way that they are not just laws. We are never allowed to lose sight of our humanity. We have to treat everyone in a humane and dignified way. And this is a theme that runs through the Torah. And I think that in this way, human beings, if they are honest about what is really best for the human condition, what is best for us as individuals, what is best for us as a society, there is nothing that comes close to the eternal and the divine wisdom in the Torah. Thank you very much for listening, and wishing you Shabbat Shalom. Hmm.